All right, welcome everybody to the Lakers Legacy Podcast, where BK have it your way. How about DK have it him's way? He rules. So the Lakers beat the Memphis Grizzlies last night to win their third straight game for the second time this season and go 5-0 at home on the year. They are now 7-4 on the season, and Cam Reddish is once again starting at the 2 in November. So 'tis the season. I'm your host, Jonathan Hernandez, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tommy Alexander. Tommy, super random icebreaker question for you that I just pulled out of my ass. Who do you think is a better dancer, Jake LaRavia from Pasadena, California, or Dalton Knecht of Fargo, North Dakota?
Definitely Dalton. No doubt
Better
about it.
dancer?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell in the rhythm of his dribbles and his pull-up jump shot. But with that said, Tommy, the Lakers are on another 3-game winning streak, and they had an uneven game last night against Memphis, and they were pretty much stuck in the mud in the second half until the rookie Dalton Knecht came to save their day. So why don't we just start here? And since we talked about Dalton dancing, or Dancer Dalton, let's just land here and talk about Dalton Knecht's first real coming out party with regards to competitive NBA play. Obviously, he had that 35-point explosion in the preseason, and he had that sort of garbage time 18 points against the Cleveland Cavaliers. But for all intents and purposes, this was the first game where everything actually mattered. The team was kind of dead in the water. And Dalton Knecht was the reason that they even came back in the game. They were down by 9. He hit a reverse pivot fadeaway jump shot on Jay Huff, and then from there started hitting every three imaginable. So your thoughts on Dalton Knecht's career high 19 points, 7 of 8 from the field, 5 of 5 from 3. And this is just the 11th game of the season, and Dalton's already scored 18 points and 19 points on the year. And yeah, the sky is the limit for this kid. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Dalton Knecht's coming out party last night?
Yeah, it was really nice to see. I mean, we figured this guy was not going to shoot like sub 30% from three the entire season. There always seems to be moments in rookies' careers where like a rookie, good rookies, certainly like rookies that are farther along in their first year, where they have that like aha moment and things kind of flip. I think in some cases you see it earlier, like Jared McCain has been on a complete tear, and a lot of that is he's been forced into a situation where he has to put up numbers on an injury depleted team. Dalton Knecht he's had solid minutes, but he hasn't had quite the same green light and opportunity to, go out and try to score 30 points. But, he's had enough, and it's been slowly building. He hit like a rough patch. Maybe his confidence was wavering. He seemed like a little nervous in some games, particularly the game we played at Memphis, because he had like a lot of, I think, his college supporters there, and certainly his college coach was there. So it was nice to see what we, obviously it was an exaggerated version of what we expect, right? But still, like, nice to see what we were hoping for. This is why we want to hold on to the picks, right? It's like picks like JHS sort of make you feel like, you just got to, you just trade them all, get players who can help now, who are more like defined quantities. But like, if you can get something like Dalton Knecht, you have a rookie now who's like, first year player, has the energy, has the hunger, and can step in right away and help your team as a first year player. And I think Dalton is on that path now, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, and I think last night's game, or last night's stretch, was a great sort of snapshot of Dalton Knecht's ceiling, because when he gets going, dude, he gets going and he never stops. He's an energizer bunny when it comes to just like his shot making, his release point on his shot. He gets white hot, no pun intended. But and I think actually this all started the last game versus the Toronto Raptors. When you remember, in that third quarter, the Lakers were making a push, and he hit this huge baseline 3-point shot off of a LeBron pass, And prior to that game, Dalton Knecht was like, I don't know, like 1 of 12 from 3 his last 2 games. And so
Yeah.
for him to hit that shot, which actually was the go-ahead three-pointer that allowed the Lakers to never look back from there, I feel like that was huge for his confidence. And tonight you just saw it. Eventually these shots were going to fall, and boy did they fall against the Memphis Grizzlies at a very crucial time for the Lakers when nobody seemed to have any juice. Anthony Davis was in foul trouble. The defense sucked. There was no offense anywhere. Um, everything had sort of ground everything was had grinded to a halt, and here was Dalton Knecht with no care in the world, just shooting these shots with the utmost confidence, and it's exactly what the Lakers needed. So yeah, huge kudos to Dalton Knecht. I think, to your point about Jared McCain getting usage and Dalton Knecht getting sort of partial usage, I mean, up until this point, Dalton Knecht has been sort of, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of plays have been drawn up for Dalton, right? But for the most part, it's not him off his own dribble, right? It's him curling off of a screen and you just got to shoot it. And so Dalton Knecht, so far we have seen the Klay Thompson iteration of Dalton Knecht. Last night, we saw the Devin Booker iteration of Dalton Knecht, where he is taking guys off the dribble, hitting his mid-range jump shots, and then also hitting the tough, 3-point shots, including that insane relocation 3 where him and Rui were hot potatoing the ball to one another. And both shots were contested very well, but Dalton Knecht was still able to get that fadeaway baseline 3 off and hit it. So yeah, huge game from Dalton Knecht. Do you have any other thoughts on the game in general? LeBron James, 3rd triple-double in a row. 4th triple-double of the year through 11 games, which is just insane. LeBron, in the last 2 games, especially in the second half, has really turned it up defensively, particularly when it comes to rebounding, because I feel like even apart from the Lakers' porous transition defense, the thing that has exacerbated all of their defensive issues has been their lack of rebounding, because the Lakers can actually defend the first action of a play pretty well, especially in the half court. It's when they give up these offensive rebounds that they can't hold up, So they expend most of their energy because they don't have the defensive personnel trying to stop that first action. And they usually do a good job of doing that. They just can't secure the rebound. And so I feel like the last 2 games, LeBron has been like, man, screw it. I will get the rebound myself, excuse my language. And he's just been like kind of a man on the mission on the boards. And so, yeah, he's done everything. Rui Hachimura had a really nice bounce back game after a week of like single digit points. He had 19 points, hit his 3-point shots, had that really nice 2-handed jam in the lane where he drove it off his own dribble and like dunked it over 2 people in the first half. And then Anthony Davis, he hit 2 huge clutch 3-pointers at the end there that I felt like was another snapshot of just how dangerous the Lakers can become if Anthony Davis is actually hitting that 3-point shot with regularity and taking it with purposeful intent. Because Zach Edey and the Grizzlies were not prepared to guard that action, and you could tell, and that's when you can really kill teams for going big like that, especially like a slower big like Zach Edey, who also got killed on drop by Dalton Knecht. But yeah, any other points you want to sort of touch on with regards to the Memphis game last night?
Only thing I'll add to what you just said, or build on what you just said on the rebounding point, you just hope that these are sort of like the typical growing pains that come along with a new coach and a new coaching staff. Rebounding was a point of emphasis from the beginning, as was, many other things, right? And so it seems like what they've done is, and things come and go in waves. In the preseason and the first few games of the regular season, it seems like the guys really bought in to the rebounding. And we were crashing the glass. Our offensive rebounding numbers were way up compared to last year. We looked a little bit better overall. We were winning the rebounding battle in several games. We talked a lot about like the possession battle, I should say. And that has tapered off quite a bit. I think now we're averaging roughly the same number of offensive rebounds per game as we did last year. We're among the worst rebounding teams overall in the league. You just sort of hope that this is just like guys' attention being turned to like other areas that also need it. I mean, a lot of areas needed cleaning up, right? So it's like, hopefully once that, the offense and things like that start to become a little more second nature, the rebounding numbers start to creep up. And I am like a little encouraged that they will, because, for example, another big point of emphasis was 3-point shooting. And 5 games or so into the season, we brought it up on this podcast, we were averaging the same number of 3-point attempts as we did last year. And now that number of attempts is slowly creeping up. Now I think we're at 33 and a half. That's already 3 higher on average than where we were last year. And it's creeping up towards that like 35, 36 number, which is, I think, where Reddish wants to be, right around the middle of the pack as a 3-point attempting team. So you sort of see those sorts of changes coming in waves. And then I think a big part of that is like, it's hard to focus, you got 82 games. And I think if a staff is trying to make sure all of like, you have to sort of phase things. And so hopefully the next phase is, once the three-pointers start to get where they want to be, once the offense starts to, starts to feel a little more solid, maybe the rebounding will start to creep back up. But it certainly did not help us yesterday or against the Grizzlies. And it's hurt us a lot against a lot of teams so far.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing that, and I guess before we take it to break, I want to ask you a macro question of, how do you feel about this team? Who is this team? Is it somewhere in the middle between the 3-0 start where everybody was, hustling their asses off and rebounding the hell out of the ball? Is it the next 4 games when we went 1-3 where we couldn't keep up with these stronger, faster, more physical teams and everybody kind of looked out of sorts and the bench couldn't get going? Or is it the last 3 games where it's kind of like, I don't know, the last 3 games have also been uneven because you're not sure how much you can peg on the Lakers are playing really well because the level of competition has dropped significantly. But even in the aggregate, the Lakers' strength of schedule has been pretty tough. And when you put into context that, I don't know, we have 6 to 7 functional NBA players on this team right now, and we're still somehow 7-4. On one side of the coin, I want to say the Lakers are probably not as good as their record. On the other side of the coin, I want to say that's pretty impressive that they are 7-4 because they are winning games that last year they would have lost, given how duct taped together this team currently is, especially now that, the recent updates are Christian Wood and Jared Vanderbilt are not going to be Christian Wood and Jared Vanderbilt are probably not even going to be in the conversation playable wise for the next couple weeks. And Jackson Hayes is now down. We're relying on a 2-way Christian Coloco, and Gabe Vincent, even while he's playing on the court, may as well be as figment of imagination in our minds as Jared Vanderbilt is, So I guess, how do you kind of sort all of those thoughts out? And are you like, is this a good team? Clearly they need to have some upgrades, but so far, even with how clunky it's looked, I mean, and maybe you give credit to JJ Redick, I mean, how are they 7-4?
So I think I give JJ some credit for the 7. I think it's 2 separate questions. I give JJ some credit for the 7-4 start because, to your point, I don't think there's any chance in these circumstances, our prior head coaches in recent memory, right, could have led us to a 7-4 start in this situation. We're 6-0 at home. That's the first time we've started 6-0 at home since 2010. It's like certain things like this, you can't really overlook. However, the upside of this team is capped by the roster. And I don't necessarily mean 1 through, 15, we have like such low talent that it is what it is. I mean, like, the talent could stand to improve a bit, but help is not like really on the way. Jared Vanderbilt and Christian Wood, I mean, we haven't been able to get any sort of definitive answer on what's going on with those guys. Christian Wood, we've gotten slightly more definitive of an answer, which is essentially just he'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks, which doesn't even mean he's coming back in a month, right? Vanderbilt is even more murky. There's not really help on the horizon. Hayes, at least, will get back in a couple weeks, it sounds like. But, those roster issues sort of are what they are. And it's going to take substantial internal improvement from guys we already have. I mean, you named Gabe as a big zero this year. He has to be a lot better. I mean, like, I'm not even, and I'm not saying this guy needs to be like an all-star. I'm just saying like a lot better than his current zero. Because, you know, guys like that, guys like Max Christie, these are like active players who are not injured, who we're committing significant dollars to, who aren't giving us anything. So I don't think it's a coincidence we're 6-0 at home and 1-4 on the road. I think the fact that we lose these sort of hustle stats hurts us a lot more on the road than it does at home, because other teams are playing with more energy at home. And so it's like you factor in our tendency to already sort of play as a baseline, play with low energy, and then the boost that other teams get by playing at home. It doesn't really surprise me that much. We got killed on the glass at Detroit. In Detroit, incidentally, who's a lot better than they were last year, even if not a playoff team, most likely. And things like that, I think, are going to continue to happen. So I think this team's upside is capped by the roster, and I don't know that I can really move on that stance until we start winning some somewhat meaningful road games. Starting, frankly, with the Spurs game, which is like the first game of like our in-season tournament. That's not a game that guys are going to be like, it's not going to be hard to get guys up for that. We won it last year. Most of this team is the same as last year. They're going to want to defend their, championship or whatever. They're going to want to play for the money, as Rui said. They will be motivated. And if we still can't win road games, I get a little more concerned, but yeah. That I think it's kind of two different points. And I think, I'm not expecting that we're going to be much better than 7-4 moving forward, because, until we start winning some road games, because 1-4, granted, it was like a tough trip that we went on early in the season, but that is like that's not going to get it done. When we looked pretty bad in those games, in at least half of those games too.
Yeah, I don't think you can move past the point that it is a roster issue, and obviously that would be mitigated if Jared Vanderbilt were healthy, Christian Wood were healthy, Gabe Vincent was actually playing like a legitimate NBA player, and also same goes for Max Christie. But unfortunately, none of those things are happening. And so, yeah, we're kind of where we're at, but I guess the silver lining to all of this is JJ Redick has done enough on the margins coaching wise. And obviously LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves have really carried the day here. They have been very consistent, those three, I feel like, to start the season, that even with this duct tape roster, the Lakers have come out of this 7-4. And so now we'll see how they fare with an even more, stripped down roster heading into IST tournament play, as you mentioned. But with that said, why don't we take it to break? And then when we get back, let's talk about the big new lineup shift that JJ Redick has implemented with 6-man DLO now in play. But before we get to that, Tommy, I have a question for you. Would you say that Dalton Knecht has that dog in him?
Yes.
Now, would you say he has that underdog in him?
Yes.
Yes, I agree with you. And regardless of what you have inside of you, just make sure you're making... That was a weird sentence. But regardless of what you have inside of you, make sure you're making your sports bet with Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more players' stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. We've got more NBA in-season tournament play starting up tomorrow, so now is the perfect time to get some bets in. Right now, the best Lakers play on the board that I can see is LeBron James higher than 8.5 rebounds. And if you don't think LeBron is going to try and get his 4th straight triple-double tomorrow and do it against Wembanyama, then I don't know what to tell you. So put that higher than 8.5 rebounds bet today on the Underdog Fantasy app. And you can do so by downloading the Underdog Fantasy app, signing up, and using code LEGACY and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app, sign up, and use code LEGACY and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Higher, there's my dog. There's my actual dog, upper dog. Higher or lower, higher or lower, you make the call. Turn every Dalton Knecht pull up, reverse pivot fadeaway on J Huff into a win for your wallet with Underdog. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. Tommy, do you think if I keep doing that final read, you'll eventually one day memorize it on your own?
I think eventually, I was going to say, do you get audited for this? Like, is somebody listening to make sure you read it?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, they make sure that we do that read. So, with that said, we'll take it to our sponsors and catch you guys after the break. All right, so we are back. Tommy, bench DLO, he is back in full vengeance.
Hello.
I think that whoa. But you know who else is back in full vengeance? November Cam Reddish. I told you he was good. But first, let's start with D'Angelo Russell and the new / big shift that JJ Redick has implemented in the last 4 games. I think it was the last 4 games, right? Or is it last 3 they did it?
Yeah, like 3 or 4.
Yeah. Okay, so the Lakers are actually I don't know. The Lakers are 3-0 or 4-0 since D'Angelo Russell went to the bench. No, 3-0 because we're on a 3-game winning streak. So interesting wrinkle. Last night was a weird game. D'Angelo Russell only played 20 minutes. I was kind of, I don't know, I thought his utilization last night was weird because when he came in, he was in lineups with LeBron James and Austin Reeves. And the prior 2 games, he kind of came in for one of them so that he was able to sort of run the show. And I don't know if it was because AD was in foul trouble or whatever, but I've also felt like we didn't see enough AD and D'Lo together running the show. But on top of that, D'Lo just looked not good. But I think you mentioned it to me. You reminded me that he was questionable to play yesterday and didn't even practice because he had an illness. So maybe we just chalk last night's game up to D'Lo being sick, and the 20 minutes is not a reflection of what he'll typically get, and the way that he played is hopefully not a reflection of what we'll typically get. Even though I actually thought he competed pretty well defensively, it's just he was not very aggressive offensively and was not attacking the paint the way that he was the prior 2 games. So let's kind of look at this from the lens of the prior 2 games when D'Lo was healthy. And he scored 18 points the first game and then 15 points the next game. What are your thoughts on 6-man D'Lo? I think there are some key differences between what Darvin Ham did last year when he benched D'Lo and what JJ Redick has done this year in benching D'Lo, because I feel like last year Darvin Ham benched D'Angelo Russell because he thought D'Angelo Russell was the problem and needed to point to something or someone to sort of scapegoat. This year, I feel like Redick's benching D'Angelo Russell because the team has a fundamental bench depth and talent problem, and he thinks D'Lo can be the one to fix it. And then on top of it, I feel like Ham benched D'Lo last year to diminish him, while Redick's benching D'Lo this year to hopefully purposefully optimize him. And in the first 2 games, we saw that when D'Angelo Russell came in, he instantly came out of the gate guns blazing with the ball in his hands. They were actually running high pick and roll stack actions with D'Angelo Russell. That was the main action that got him going last season, when he went on that tear post trade deadline or even prior to the trade deadline. But yeah, and so I think I'm not sure where to attribute the 3-game win streak, whether it is the bench shift or not, because D'Angelo Russell is still relatively playing the same amount of minutes that he has been playing, and he's still put in staggers and lineups that were sort of similar to what we saw prior. The only difference is he's now coming in at the 5-minute mark. And I guess if I had to pinpoint something, I guess it would just be there is a much clearer delineation for D'Angelo Russell now that he's not starting the game, that when he comes in at the 5-minute mark, it's go time. You run the show. Go get some buckets. Now that didn't happen last game, but again, we'll caveat last game to his illness. But overall, like, what's your sense on the return of bench DLO, 6-man DLO, and what the Lakers have done here? Can you definitively and decisively say that it's quote unquote worked just yet?
Long term, I can't say. So far, it's working. So, look, last time we talked about the possibility of D'Lo being benched, I remember because I am about to say I was wrong, but I definitely said I don't think it's going to make a difference the way JJ is staggering the guards, and it's not like D'Lo's playing 35 minutes anyway. He's being staggered with Austin in a particular way, and there's always one of Austin or D'Lo on the floor. He's being used with LeBron, with AD, like in all kinds of different looks. And so I didn't think the function of just moving him to the bench would do anything more than, up the optics of having a more balanced production between your starters and bench players. Because I felt like D'Lo was getting his shots and getting his looks and being a little more aggressive in the minutes where he wasn't playing with LeBron anyway. That said, I obviously and severely underestimated like some element of sports psychology here, right? Because there's more to it than just, are you playing the first 5 minutes of the quarter? Are you playing the second 5 minutes of the quarter? It could be with the exact same, or very similar groupings. But yeah, to your point, psychologically, the move seems to have like triggered something in D'Lo where before it sort of felt like his idea of doing something different than what he had done in his first 8 seasons or so in the league was, I'm not going to force my own stuff. I'm just going to be a guy here, make sure the ball moves, not over dribble, keep the passes flowing. On that point specifically, JJ's offense, we're significantly up on off-ball screens, way less number of dribbles, way more passes, like all the sort of soft offensive stats compared to last year are significantly up. And so D'Lo, I think, interpreted his role in the starting lineup as just sort of not being a detriment to that.
Or fitting in. Do you remember that line that LeBron James had for Kevin Love when he first joined the Cavs, where he's like, "Don't fit in, fit out," or something like that?
Yeah, something weird like that, right? But yeah, it's like he took the fitting in thing a little bit too literally, and I think was like kind of handicapping his output. So to the point you made, which I think is a good one, I think like moving to the bench has given him a lot more clear understanding of what the staff needs him to do. And that is be D'Angelo Russell. Not necessarily, dribble the ball to create, offense and use high usage and generate assists. I think like the assists come in the flow of the offense, and so if you're not the guy getting the assist, maybe you're getting the hockey assist, but we still need you to like shoot and score. You're one of our best shooters. You're probably our third or fourth best offensive player, scoring option in terms of at least reputation, right? So we need more from him than what we were getting in the first few games. And it seems like the bench move has helped that. Now, when guys start to come back, I guess if guys start to come back from injury,
That's so sad.
Yeah. That dynamic could shift, right? Because currently there was you could argue there was a redundancy. It's like you have your top 3 guys who I think are clearly have delineated themselves from the rest of the roster at this point. But, it was sort of unclear between Rui and D'Angelo on any given night. You're sort of getting redundant skill sets there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. At least offensively. And so, having a system where D'Lo comes in and it's like, you've seen 6 games or however many games before he moved to the bench of how inept our bench scoring is, it's very, very like clear for him what he needs to do there. Come in and just start shooting it. And his aggression made him look really, really good in his first 2 games off the bench, more like last season D'Angelo Russell, and like kind of the guy that, you know, we were expecting to see again this year. And so I think it's worked so far. But yeah, I mean, again, to the point I was trying to make, like when Vando comes back, is there a world where it makes sense to play D'Lo and Austin together again and swap in Vando for Rui? It's very possible. Is there a world where, you know, Cam regresses? Very possible. So I'm not saying like we need to stick with this forever, but I think, you know, the results as of the first couple of games that came off the bench were clear. And we need a bigger sample size, I think, still. I mean, it's my sample is really like 2 games so far because, like, yeah, you know, he was questionable to play in that last game against Memphis. He, you know, was a game time decision, I'm pretty sure even. And then they ended up saying he was going to play. His first like long 3 that he took was like a 1.5 feet short. It was just very, very clear to me that he didn't have the legs. And he was clearly sick. So we need a bigger sample size. But, you know, again, if this team is going to do anything, we're going to have to be able to win some meaningful games on the road. And in the short term, while we're waiting for guys to hopefully come back from injury and, you know, we have these obvious glaring roster issues, we're going to have to be able to compensate for that with something. And D'Angelo's ability to just go off and go on these heaters can compensate for a lot of issues. I mean, like D'Angelo Russell single-handedly like won us a few games last year, just by coming in and dropping 30 points on like high efficiency and completely taking over games. And there was nothing you could do about it because once he gets going, he's going to shoot contested threes on your head and you can't stop it. We need that a couple times to get us some wins here because every win is crucial as we've seen so far and certainly in the West. And so you know, we just need to make sure that the right balance is struck, which I think was the point you're making. But yeah, so far results are good, but I'm open to continued tweaking.
What's funny is when we had our podcast last time and I had brought up the idea of like, you know, maybe the answer here to activate D'Angelo Russell is bring him off the bench. And I had kind of divulged that I had sort of warmed up to the idea. Now I'm kind of veering back to your end of where I'm like, but is it just academic at the end of the day? I don't know. I think we need a larger sample size to really suss this out. But I am surprisingly more and more embracing this 6-man D'Lo role, even for the long term. My only concern would be, especially given the state of the roster right now, I don't think JJ Redick can keep doing this thing where he only plays D'Angelo Russell like 25 minutes a night. I don't know. Is that an issue for you? Because right now, like we are so devoid of like actual talent that I feel like JJ Redick needs to kind of push the boundaries even further of letting D'Angelo Russell have more free reign to not only be a scorer, not only be a scorer, but also be point D'Lo as well, you know, because we are losing a very important component of D'Angelo Russell's game. And he's like literally outside of LeBron, the purest point guard on this team. And if we're losing the Ohio State, you know, bowling ball, curve the bullet bounce passes and stuff, it's like, all right, D'Angelo Russell is Lou Will, I guess, but we kind of need the Rondo version of D'Angelo Russell as well. So I'm kind of like monitoring the situation closely and making sure that, you know, JJ Redick isn't galaxy braining himself as well, where it's like, okay, yeah, D'Lo has bought into it and he's activated, but why is he still only playing 26 minutes a game? And for some reason, Cam Reddish and Rui Hachimura are playing more minutes than him, you know, like where it wasn't it just supposed to be a functional logistical shift, not like, oh, also his minutes are going down with him as well, kind of like what Darvin Ham did. I don't know if you have any concerns with regards to that. Obviously, last night he was sick. Dalton Knecht had it going, and he was also pretty solid defensively. So you understand there are going to be certain games through the flow of the game where, yes, D'Angelo Russell's minutes are going to go down, and someone else who's got it going might get the opportunity to close. But so far in the first 3 games, even in the ones that he was healthy, it was still like, oh wait, he's playing below 28 minutes. Like, is this going to be an ongoing trend?
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. And I have similar concerns. I think like last night, and again, this all goes back to the sample size point. Last night is so tough because Austin, I thought, started the game strong, but then he had an off night shooting and he played way too many minutes for how poor he looked at times.
Mm.
I think he played that many minutes because DLO was sick and we couldn't lean on
Yeah.
him as much as. So, high 20s is not that far off from what he was getting as a starter. If he can stay in that range, high 20s, maybe low 30s, if he's having like a hot night. Like Dalton, I think, played 30 last night. So that, obviously significantly cut into his minutes, DLO's minutes. But we need the bigger sample size and we need to see how all of this stuff works. Sort of longer term. Another point on the sample size is, one of the games in this run of DLO off the bench was, playing against the Sixers, the Raptors, I think. Who did we play where he, was it Gabe on Emmanuel quickly? What's the matchup I'm thinking that where Gabe had a really
Gabe on Emmanuel who
yeah,
the
yeah.
Raptors.
So like, those types of things situationally will come up over the course of an 82 game season. But when that's one of your 3 game sample size and the second game is you were sick, like obviously that's going to sort of drive your minutes down. Like Gabe on Emmanuel quickly was an obvious matchup choice for defense and it worked, I think, in that game. That's not going to be the case every night. So that's why I'm actually really interested to see how this first in-season tournament game goes because like I said, we're going to need DLO to be like last year DLO. I mean, we're paying this guy $19 million. Like he has to be able to help us compensate for our defensive deficiencies, not even necessarily by playing defense, but by being even more offensive output.
Yep.
We're 5th in the NBA in offensive efficiency, and DLO is having the worst season of his career by far. I mean, honestly, worse than his rookie year, right? So
it's true.
Which is crazy. So like if DLO can become anything close to what he was I won't even say last year, like it was some outlier, like what he's been doing for like the last 6-7 years, like 6 years, basically, it's going to elevate our offense even further. And then hopefully, that helps our defense, takes a little bit more pressure off our defense, which is already really, really struggling. So
yep.
It's all sort of related. We've talked about this a lot. One side of the floor flows into the other. And so, yeah, the big reason that I'm monitoring it though is because like Gabe Vincent has been like so unreasonably ineffective. That like, I know and what you worry about is like, is Gabe Vincent, JJ Redick's like Ronnie Price, Torian Prince,
no.
And I don't think so, because I don't think JJ is as like one-dimensionally minded as some of our prior head coaches. But there's clearly some like there's some simpatico relations happening there where it's like, the way JJ wishes every player played like or as hard would be like Gabe, right?
Yeah. He said he wants 10 Gabe Vincents. I think I would unlive myself if we had 10 Gabe Vincents.
Exactly. Exactly.
Undead myself, whatever the kids say.
Exactly. So, the concern is how long does JJ continue to hold on Gabe to try to give him something? I think Gabe played 20 minutes last night or against the Grizzlies. He was
somehow a new worst performance for Gabe, which is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he was 0 for 6, didn't really do anything of note. Maybe had a couple okay plays where he was in the right spot defensively. But those are like dead minutes. I mean, you're not getting anything. I mean, for all the complaining I did last year about those like dead Cam minutes and dead Torian Prince minutes, I mean, this has taken it to like a new level. And the problem is we're paying this guy so much that like you feel like there's maybe some sort of buyer's remorse or some sort of like feeling that like we have to try what we can to get this guy going. But the problem is in the meantime, that eats into DLO minutes, and we also need to get him going too. If there's any chance we're going to keep him, which I think there is. So,
this brings up another point of, do you know the backcourt mate that DLO actually has pretty good chemistry with? It's Max Christie. And right now we haven't seen Max Christie. You know, like how many times have we seen the D'Lo Max Christie backdoor cut connection? And I feel like D'Lo needs that trigger man. He has Dalton Knecht as a trigger man on the perimeter, but he also needs the trigger man with regards to cutting to the basket. You know, someone more athletic. And the fact that Gabe Vincent is his partner in crime right now, I'm just like record scratch moment after record scratch moment. No wonder we can't even get point D'Lo. Who's he pointing to right now? You know, and so yeah, to your point, I think this is a problem with regards to how long we're going to keep stringing this out with Gabe Vincent. I will say the other benefits of D'Lo to the bench have been seen in unlocking Austin Reeves and giving him more free reign at the start of games to just get into a rhythm. And then,
Yeah.
you know, there is a trickle down effect with Cam Reddish being able to now take on the best primary defender on the opposing team, and Austin Reeves being able to take the, you know, KCP guy who's like camped out on the baseline. And in turn, Austin Reeves has the legs to be more consistent offensively, although last night's game did not show that. But prior to that, Austin Reeves was like super efficient, had been hitting his 3-point shots, and it looked like he had juice in his legs to continue attacking the basket. And I think he was also less turnover prone, again, prior to last game, but he had like 6 assists and 0 turnovers. So that's been another benefit of D'Lo to the bench. Again, it's 3 games. We shall see how long this sort of lasts and what if whether or not JJ Redick has to make any additional adjustments. But so far, you can't really argue with 3-0 and 3 games in a row, even though it's been sort of topsy turvy in the middle of these games. But yeah, I guess that'll do it for this episode. And yeah, IST tournament play starts tomorrow against Wemby, who just had 50 points and 8 of 16 from 3. So good luck to Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Should be fun regardless. But yeah, follow us on Twitter at Lakers Legacy Pod. Please also give us 5 stars on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. But yeah, with that said, Tommy, I will catch you later. See ya.
Peace.
Laters.